Management school, definitely. That is the biggest problem. You tell me, where is the place where a tier 2 or tier 3, as you said, they are ready to invest in faculty? Please go and find out who teaches there. Most of the schools, the classes, unfortunately, a large number of people are coming. The students who doesn't get placed, I told you, engineering colleges has become institutes for placement. So they will get students who are not being placed to come and teach. Again, as you said, and what is the remuneration they get? Please go and check what is the kind of remuneration the faculty get and what is the kind of faculty which are coming. Whatever may be the learning methodology. I mean, I would put this question. At the end of the day, a teacher makes all the difference. You might have the best infrastructure, but until and unless you have, but unfortunately, I want somebody to do this study, the kind of people, right, who are getting into teaching. Please go and find out this, because this has all lot to do. I mean, I leave this question, everybody can respond, but sure. I can certainly talk about, because I am very closely associated with academics. I've seen, I sit in the management board of 5 schools, so I know that there is a extreme reluctance on most of the school to invest on what I call it as software, and the faculty, than an infrastructure.
And to add to Pallab's point, I think fundamentally if you step back and even review the process, right, in terms of how students get into different colleges, the uptake process of students into an IIT versus a non-IIT is very different, right? There are certain bars set by each of these colleges, and the students are supposed to clear that bar to get an admission into those colleges. So historically, the belief is if somebody is clearing a bar at the IIT, right, they're better than probably the rest of the pack. But however, it's also a number issue, right, demand versus supply. And the strategies for different organizations are different. Some companies may be hiring only 100 people or 200 people from college every year versus another company hiring 10,000 people. So the strategies are different, and I think the shift is happening on the companies coming in with a mindset saying, okay, now as a company A, I'm going to set this bar, and it doesn't matter, I will go to 30 colleges, but whoever clears my company bar will get a job offer from us. So that shift is happening, but again, I think it's a situation of demand versus supply and availability and so on, right? So, but I think fundamentally things are changing to the extent of companies are saying, I'm going to visit these 200 colleges and I have my bar, and anybody clearing this company, bar would get a job offer from us. So that's happening.
One quick point on that is this sort of salary they're talking about, 17 lakhs over. They're just a microcosm of a microcosm. They, even if all those people get placed, they are such a fraction of the entire population, the numbers that are passing out. It doesn't really go against anybody else being selected for those positions. It is a very, very, very small.
People who are into this lower end of the society and getting inducted after 2-3 years in the same companies, they are being absorbed at a certain point of time. We are not being upfront as an industry that to induct them into the ecosystem. We are all doing it backdoor. False certifications, false, the Infosys, TCSs of the people, you will all hire them after 2-3 years of false certification. We are not taking them upfront, stating that, okay, you are at a mediocre level, you are poor level, below par level. We are taking you, understanding what you are, 17 lakhs, maybe 10 lakhs, 6 lakhs, and these people are at 6,000 rupees. So they get into the ecosystem in the backdoor way. They are not coming upfront. So my question was, maybe some way we need to look at the whole system being upfront and take them into the ecosystem, let them go, not take up the backdoor entries, what they are doing today.
One response, from a BPM perspective, I can tell you from a skill gap analysis, demand supply, talent availability. PT started with the rural BPO kind of situation. Did it fetch us good results? Answer is absolutely yes. Do we have the scale in which we need to operate? We are far off. Today, whatever skill set we require, be it in BFSI or telecom or IT or networking, the scale in which we operate is fairly large. So So I think we have to operate at a different model. There is a lot of investment of time and canvassing the CEO who leaves quarter by quarter these days. Okay, and telling them that this is a long-term investment. Having said that, the WAIS plan which we have, downgrading to look at BSEs instead of BEs by giving them BITS Pilani course. It's one classic model which has worked with us for last 1 decade, wherein we take tons of BSEs and scale them up to become a competent engineer, working closely with BITS Pilani, wherein they get qualified with the educational certification, and then they tend to work with us. Now, on the other side, from the student perspective, they've taken big time advantage of that. Let me also tell you, how people take. When I hire from 42 tier 2, tier 3 satellite centers in India, 30% of my hiring today is 32% of the hiring is from 45 satellite centers, which are tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. 6 months later, 60 to 70% of the 32% leave us because they've got a big brand, which is sunflower logo, and there is another employer across the road or in the same building in the next floor hiring them at least at, if not 100%, maybe at 200%. So what was the cost arbitrage in which I went to these cities, assuming that I can do train and hire? I deputed trainers who live in Vizag, Trichy, Siliguri, Jammu. I'm telling you all the names which nobody will go. The government program, recent one program which we had in Jammu and Kashmir, Udan, we invested on this. Udan program. In 3 months, I could identify 25 people, whereas I hire on an average 1,800 people a month. So I think it's a dichotomy. It has to catch up, but who will bring the ring? I don't know, because people who are once beaten twice shy. So I'm not very sure. I'm very confident to increase that 32% to a 40% or a 50%. I'm very shy. I would rather keep it lower than 32% or 25 or 20%.
And one more reason could be, I'm just telling, but as we have been discussing at the entry level, we are pretty tough in terms of determining, because we are primarily using them as a filtering mechanism. Whereas the guy, as you said, from tier 2 colleges goes to a smaller organization, he really learns, maybe a networking.
Yeah.
Start with a small organization, he really learns. And then takes a couple of years to really learn. And by the time, as you said, 3 years, and he makes himself entitled for a 6 lakh rupee job, that point of time, the same organization, when looking at him, doesn't look at him and tell that, okay, you are not computer science, you are not from a tier 1 colleges, but but you really know the job, because after 2 to 3 years, he is being interviewed by a hiring manager who primarily focuses
on the skills,
set required for the job. So it's possibly not fair, as you said, from 6,000 to 6 lakhs in 3 years' time, but that possibly a result of our ecosystem, where because of this so much higher numbers of engineers, I hope it's going to change, because the report says some 2,000 engineering colleges are getting closed this year.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the IOA debate yesterday night. Somebody said we needed this treatment, possibly we'll come out with a cleaner system. So I'm just drawing an analogy that the sports administrator of the country, we all know, right? That at least you look at them, you can't associate, at least from their physical appearance, nothing to do with sports. But possibly they need a complete cleanup. So possibly once the 2,000 engineering colleges are being closed down, those who remained in the business, possibly a bigger pocket on good intention, so possibly they would invest more and kind of create awareness among the students. And I'm sure some of these things, I know, like he said, Infosys has been working 8 to 10 years on these campus programs. I know Wipro has been working tremendously on the primary education. It will take many years to show, but once it starts showing, possibly we'll have lesser number of colleges, and as you said, more of social parity, not between 6,000 and 17 lakhs. Possibly that parity will be reduced. But when you have large numbers, I would believe that the disparity will always continue. And in spite of, there is so much of social sanctions against, the degrees and diplomas in this country. Because after all, again, we are the only country, and please let me know, I've not seen any other country where people in the nameplate, write their
qualifications
degrees in the house. Right?
even in their wedding invitation these days.
Yes, so yes.
So I
But that's important though,
I must admit, I keep on getting some unfair advantage because of these two letters before my name. But that's what the country it is all about. So I think, but as I said, there are younger people, my own understanding, I'm sure you are, they are getting more, there is at least a section of people who really want to, learn the job. Because I personally believe until unless you love what you do, you cannot excel.
Yes.
So once you start loving, I think, whatever field we are, then I think these things starts mattering less. I won't say that they won't matter because you live in a society, right? Obviously, so that will impact. And primarily, we are a high context culture. Let's get that very clear. We will never be like United States. In our kind of society, context matters quite a lot. External ratification matters quite a lot. It would never be a United States where we will completely, decide based on what I think is right. Because the fact of the life is, there are thousands of engineers who study engineering because their parents want them to study engineering.
Yes.
Right? In my MBA classes in best of the schools today, I don't know whether it is, let me give you a statistics. Okay, I won't name the college, but it's one of the best in the country, which gives MBA in HR. Okay, and in my class of 62 people, which I taught a course, 58 of them were engineers, and out of them, 52 were software engineers. This doesn't happen by chance. It's a trend which is showing up.
I'll tell you another thing that I see in India about the same type of thing. People do masters just after the bachelor's, which is completely wrong. That's just completely opposite of what it's supposed to be. But over here, based on parent pressure, I've seen a lot of parents force their kids to do their masters right after the bachelor's, where in reality, a master's is a program for people that have already worked in the industry. They want to go into management after working. Here, you knock out the bachelor's and the master's right after that and then look for a job. That in itself is wrong.
No, but here quite often it's because student pressure themselves. They want to continue with education.
Yeah, finish it off and take a job.
Okay, we'll go for the next question.
I have
saw
one
some
question.
hand there.
I'm Joshi. I work with a company called SLK Software. We heard about from the eminent speakers here that this 85% of this networking skills population is below 2 years or below 3 years. Another thing is that there are the career model or career plan is not well established or it's not defined, which means that the people have that feeling that this is not a glamorous job. And then we also hear that this is one of the essential services in the software industry, without which probably each one of us, when we get to the office in the morning, we feel paralyzed. We all know this thing. So I just wanted to know from the big companies where these volumes are pretty large, what is the effort of what we're doing in defining this career model and ensuring that the employees have the concept of recognizing this as a glamorous job and there is something more to look forward to in their career, considering the fact that this is around 85% of the population.
So, I touched upon that part. Marketing is the kind of profiles you do is the key for showcasing your ability to move people from one level to the other. So we do a lot of showcasing activities. Speakers, there are subject matter experts who do WebEx sessions with aspirant who would like to take career in those respective areas. We have mentorship programs wherein we do domain specific mentors or functional mentors for mentoring buddies who are just new to the industry or a particular domain. We also have custom-made certification programs which are big time marketed across the organization in terms of mass mailers, in terms of some insight of this particular program being successful for people who have utilized them in their career. We have something called Channel W, wherein we mention about people who have been successfully implemented these certification program in their career and moved up the ranks. So I think a lot of marketing within the organization is the key for people to come to the forefront and realize the value which can be built. Now, on the flip side, let me also tell you, we have become darshanis of the world. We need fast food, we need fast career, we need fast child. Every damn thing is fast.
Is that possible?
People get bored with their job in the first 3 months. People get bugged with the project which is beyond 6 months. People don't want to have the same title beyond 1 year. I think the bug of fast or speed is catching up. I don't have an answer because somebody said cultural gaps are once in a decade used to be between me and my father or me and my brother. I also teach like Pallab. I have a cultural gap between the first year student and the second year student, and I teach both of them. And best known B schools, these are not the unknown ones. These are the best known B schools. And same analogy apply when I go and stand in front of campuses, well known campuses across the globe. When I do my so-called pre-placement talk, I get a cultural shock from last year because world has changed. So that's a reality. So as far as the internal organization is concerned, I think we as an organization have tremendous amount of investment of time and effort in marketing.
How do you see the success here in terms of, from the other organizations as well? Because there's one challenge which we face, not only for these networking skills, some of the, another area which we find it difficult is the internal automation, enterprise automation team, where they generally work for the internal automation of the tools and technologies and all. They don't get an opportunity to work with the customers. So there again, the mindset, as you rightly said, is that this is not a job where I think I can make a career out of it. The sooner I get out of this, the better for me. And my colleagues or the people who have joined at the same time along with me from the campus, they are making much more progress than me. That is the feeling which is catching up with the people. So I'm just trying to figure out what are the methods by which we are addressing this.
I don't agree with that, to be honest with you. Even if people are working within the organizations, there are huge organizations like, you take Wipro as an example. They are a worldwide organization, and the person is not working on their customer side of things. They're working on their internal network. That network in itself is a huge network. Now, coming back to your original question, in terms of the career path that you want to give to a networking person, you need to be flexible over there. Yes, there is, coming from a technology perspective now, you need to give them the foundation of networking, which is how to connect the network to each other. But once he's done that, that's where he starts. You cannot define what he will like because he does not know what is the field all about. You need to give him the opportunity, you need to give him the flexibility to go into that field at the foundational network infrastructure level. Then, what Doctor said, let him choose the field that he loves. In networking, you need to understand one thing. A security professional versus a voice professional, both not IT, I'm talking about just networking, are completely distinct personalities, different technologies. A person, after doing networking, the basic foundation has to be the same. After that, he will have to make a choice of what he likes. You cannot dictate that up front. You can just give him the tracks that he can take. You can go into a security field, or you can go into a voice field, you can go into the storage field, there's the cloud computing field. Each one is completely distinct.
That goes with what Praveen said, that the marketing will help in terms of educating the people that
about
what are
the
the
different fields
that they can choose.
But
with
they
right?
need to pick that. You cannot dictate, like you cannot have a set path. Okay, you do networking and then you go into security. You do security, then you go into voice. That will all depend on the type of person that, what type of field is more inclined with what he likes. And that's where they'll excel. I totally agree with what Doctor said in terms of if you want to excel in a particular field, you need to like that field. There's no other way you can excel in a field.
See, I'll just sum up what he said. There are three things we talk about in career management. The first thing is career information, okay, which Praveen was talking about. And how do you do it? You market it, you make it look like quote unquote glamorous or quote unquote jobs which has a more earning potential and so on. All those what is primarily related to social desirability. Let's get that very clear. The second part is what I call it as once you get those information, before you start your career, you create what is called a career identity. Based on the information you get, you create a career identity. That means I will become a network guy, right? Or I will become a hardware guy, right? This identity is very important because primarily if you see in India, people are more interested to work on software than hardware. If you go and people will say that I want to work for a services company. If you give a preference, they will say I want to work for a product company. Even in the services company, if you give a preference, they will say I don't want to work on a maintenance project. We all know that. This exists, right? So career identity is very important. And the last, what it comes, if you have a real good career identity, what I call it as career resilience. Career resilience comes out of your love for that profession. And then you are not bothered that my batchmate who is doing a development project in Java in a BFSI domain is earning more than me, whether we are passed out in the same, because we all know in India everybody knows everybody's salary, right? The whole industry is based on only one paradigm.
What's
Uski
his
kameez, mere kameez se safed kyun? Why is his shirt brighter than mine? And that the only way you can overcome is what I call it as career resilience. So these three things are interrelated. Only based on an adequate career information, and that's where I said there is a huge amount of gap exists today, primarily because in Indian context, most of the places, leave aside the cities, what percentage is covered, see the whole vast India, where people get information from the family and friends. And there are very few people who worked in a truly IT organization. As I said, it's still a couple of more years when you will get, the next generation coming from the people who are so-called IT professionals. So they don't get this. Once you have this, then you develop a career identity. Then you start, as he said, the love starts, right? That I want to become a network professional or I want to become a Java professional. And you must understand, IT is all over the world different than what other fields are. Primarily, people here are close to the profession, not to the organization. And chartered accountant will say, I'm a chartered accountant, and probably I work for Infosys. The guy will say, I'm a Java guy, and incidentally I work for Infosys. You have to accept this reality. That's the way this, because people are much more closer affinity towards profession. So therefore, and the last part is if you really have adequate career identity, then you will develop what is called career resilience. And even if somebody pays you 20% more or your batchmate gets somewhere more, right? So
it won't matter. I totally agree. It won't matter. It matters when you're not happy with the job. Then you compare.
So in the interest of time, we are going to just accept one last question. The panelists, I'll request panelists to be available maybe post this discussion for the refreshments and tea. So you can ask those questions there. So one last question we'll take.
We're talking about network skills gap, right? So as I understand, the network skills gap arises whenever we feel a lot of scarcity, the demand-supply curve is really disturbed, right? So I've been following a lot of IT/networking, skill gaps in the industry, right? Let's think about 100 skills in India, right? Maybe super niche or maybe niche. EMC, network administrator, or NetApp, or Wintel, or Citrix administrators, whatever, right? So what is that this tier 1 organizations would have done to increase this, skill base in India? Let's say we knew this before 3 years, right? I think, Amit has asked this question. What is that you all expect in the next 2 to 3 years time
kind of skills that you see. We have we answered 2 generic answers. One is network security, and another one is
Data center.
Data center.
yeah, right. So we knew that before 3 years itself, all these skills are really in a scarcity. Before 3 years, Infosys suffered in terms of bringing these guys on board, right? Let's say by chance Wipro would have upskilled or probably cross-trained about 30 guys. So after 1 year, he is anyway available